What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, Nick, a video that honestly I never thought we would be doing on this channel. Ronda Rousey is almost 7 years removed from the UFC. We started doing this just a couple of years ago, but it seems like she's actually serious about making a return. Now, when it first surfaced, the news did, I thought it was kind of like a joke. I was like, yeah, Ronda maybe just is trying to grab some headlines or something, but she seems to really want to come back and try to compete inside the octagon, and she actually wants to fight Gina Carano, which is a fight that a lot of people who are old school Ronda Rousey fans wanted to see back in the day. What do you make of this, and would you like to see Ronda fight again?
You know, I'm always down for one of these one-off type of fights. And if you followed MMA for many, many years, you know that Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano is kind of like the female MMA version of Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather.
Yep.
I get it's way smaller in magnitude, but everybody did want to see those two girls go because they're straight up pioneers. If there's a female Mount Rushmore for MMA, both of them belong on it. They did so much for the sport, and Gina just happened to be out of it by the time Ronda came in and took the UFC by storm, became one of the biggest names that the sport had, and really did some wonderful things in the sport. And I know a lot of people look back on Ronda Rousey's career and be like, oh, she was just beating girls that weren't up to her level. Well, she was very technically good at what she was doing, but she wasn't a complete mixed martial artist that had all of her skills buttoned up. So she got in a little early. She made a bunch of money. She got out and did some other cool things, WWE. She's gotten into acting and done a lot of great things outside of the octagon. But once you're a fighter, you can never really get rid of that itch. And if there's a big money fight like one with Gina Carano, I say they should sign up and make it happen.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to see for sure. And the UFC certainly is in the business of making one-off fun fights when it does make sense. And this one would certainly make sense. As you said, Ronda was a trailblazer, as was Gina. You know, Dana White is famously quoted saying that there will never be women competing inside the octagon, and that wasn't that long ago. And now look at where things are today. Not only are they competing, there's multiple divisions, there's very popular champions, and so
they're main eventing events now.
Yeah, exactly. And so Ronda Rousey, in a lot of ways, is to thank for a lot of that because she drew eyes to the sport almost like no one else. She didn't quite eclipse the level of Conor McGregor, sort of Israel Adesanya, where they're bringing people from the anime world, just the pop culture world in general with regards to McGregor. But Ronda Rousey had fans, our sister included, who would never watch an MMA fight, but they tuned in to see Ronda fight. It was kind of a thing of beauty, and it was something that really surprised, I think, Dana White and the rest of the UFC brass, that this woman could come in there and not only contend and put on big shows, but actually kind of have record-breaking nights, which is exactly what Ronda Rousey did. And I think she's coming back for the right reasons. You know, she's got a family now. She's married to Travis Brown. She was in the WWE. She presumably made a ton of money from that. She made a ton of money from fighting. She's in her mid-30s. There's absolutely no reason from a financial standpoint for her to come back other than pure desire to do so. And when you go to the Olympics for judo, you have to be a competitor at heart. And that's what Ronda is. And a lot of people said, you know what, the one fight we wish we'd have gotten to see was Gina Carano. And so she said, you know what, let's make it happen.
Yeah, and I think Ronda would actually take a fight even if it wasn't against Gina Carano. I think there's a couple of women out there that are still competing in the UFC that she would be willing to go in there and fight. Holly Holm, that would be a great rematch. I think, you know, after Holly Holm beat her the way she did, that was probably one of the roughest nights that Ronda Rousey has ever experienced. But if she could come back, there's not that much pressure on it. And if she loses again, it's kind of expected, right? You've taken 7 years off. You're not really supposed to go in and fight a girl who was just number 3 in the rankings last week and has been in the top 5 of the 135 division ever since you left. So the expectations and the weight on Ronda's shoulders are all gone. She's completely free to go in there, and the results don't matter. She's going to put on an epic show. She'd be entertaining to see back in the octagon. You know, when she would walk out and she'd do her stare downs, it was something meaningful. Yeah. There was something to it. And I think she would garner a lot of attention from not just the people that used to watch her fight, not just the girls that, you know, saw her as like a living real life superhero, but she must have garnered a ton of fans over in WWE. And what we know about the WWE fans, very similar to the MMA fans, they're very loyal to their fighters, they're very loyal to their sport or their entertainment, and they're willing to go on the journey with you and watch you no matter what you go off and do. If it's a movie and you go star with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Fast and Furious 12 or whatever, they're going to come along for the ride to support you. So I think Ronda's got a huge support system, and I'd love to see her get back in there.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned in the beginning of the video about how her skills were kind of above everybody at the time, the sport caught up to Ronda. Ronda was doing her specialty, which was judo and then also submissions, but even most specifically arm bars.
Right.
She had a takedown to an armbar sequence that no girl could stop. Basically, they knew what was coming, and they still couldn't defend it until you get the people like Amanda Nunes and Holly Holm, who are these ultra high-level kickboxers who wouldn't have competed in MMA. Ronda was her own demise in a way because there was no market for women's MMA until Ronda came along. And then when she came along, all these girls that are uber talented jiu-jitsu players and power punchers like Amanda Nunes make their way into the sport. People like Holly Holm that are great boxers and kickboxers with that pedigree make their way into the sport, and they fill the gaps in areas that they're lacking. And then you get in there against a specialist like Ronda, and they've got the answer for the judo takedowns. And so if you can stop the takedown, you don't have to worry about the arm bar. And then if you don't have to worry about the arm bar and you're Amanda Nunes, boy, oh boy, can you ever tee off, which is exactly what happened. But that's not to discount Ronda's skills at all. She's really, really good at what she does. And I think she could come back and make for some entertaining fights. I don't think that it depends on what journey Ronda wants to go, right? Is she coming back to become a contender and try to get the belt? I think that will not be achieved at this point in her life. If she's coming back to have some fun and fight some old foes and maybe get a win back against a Holly Holm or fight somebody she's never fought like Gina Carano, I don't think she's going to try to get that win back against Amanda Nunes. But I think there's some fun fights that could be had, and I'm down to see it.
Yeah, me too. Her days of competing for the UFC's gold are long behind her, and I don't really see her looking at that as the route that she would take. If you go back and look at Ronda Rousey's highlight reel, it's still to this day some of the most entertaining finishing sequences and arm bars, and like you said, the judo trips and takedowns. People even now aren't doing things as clean as she was doing them back then. So seeing her come back in the sport would be a lot of fun. And while it was weird for her to have such a big target on her back from the day she signed with the UFC, it would be almost interesting to see her with a different type of target on her back. Obviously, she's a huge name. People want to get that fight. It's almost like the female version of the McGregor fight, right? And it would be really difficult to get that fight. But if you're the one that gets selected, your name is going to grow tremendously. So Ronda Rousey doesn't have the pressure of being the greatest female fighter of all time anymore. But what she does have is that huge target of being an absolute superstar.
That's exactly right.